Oftentimes, our guests here on the Comlink have more to say than we can fit on the show. So here is our extended interview with the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, James Arnold Taylor. We're very excited to have here on the show for the very first time the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, James Arnold Taylor. James,
hey,
welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's really cool. This is a great set.
Isn't it amazing?
And you're part of the set. I like this.
I am.
You stay here no matter what. Right?
I actually never leave. And you know what? This is kind of one of these weird sort of like Star Wars vortex type of moments where it's like, well, first of all, I think we've never done an interview together before.
But you've never interviewed me.
Yeah.
I've never interviewed you.
And you're used to you've been interviewing
I'm
people
always interviewing people.
a lot recently. Yeah. Star Wars weekends,
Yep.
as well as Star Wars Celebration
6, yeah.
6, and of course now Star Wars Celebration Anaheim coming up.
Yeah, and you'll be there?
Yeah, April 16th through 19th, 2015. Hope to see you there.
We have some big stages.
We do. I hear there's a movie.
I don't know.
That's in the works.
Yeah,
that
maybe,
Disney.
Is there?
I don't keep up
Is
with
Disney
those.
involved?
Maybe. I think.
Okay.
Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Star Wars weekends.
Yeah, Star Wars Weekends was great. We had, I think, the biggest, most successful, and certainly the most fun Star Wars Weekends ever. This was my 4th year hosting and my 7th year attending. And it was fantastic fun. We did 5 weeks of celebrations. Disney was very cool. They said, okay, week 5, what do you want to do? It's Father's Day week, what do you want,
Right.
I said, I want a Clone Wars reunion, Ashley and I are already there. Get Matt Lanter, get Catherine Tabor, get Tom Kane, get Dee Bradley Baker, and they did. Before that, though, we had Mark Hamill, we had Peter Mayhew on his birthday, and not a dry eye in the place. You can see it on YouTube. There was this great, because we surprised Peter and his family with a big Millennium Falcon birthday cake, which was fantastic. Like, you didn't want to eat it, and Ahmed Best was there. Ahmed showed up. Wow. We had Vanessa Marshall from Rebels. We had Taylor Gray from Rebels. We had Tia Sakar. We had Steve Bloom. We had John Ratzenberger for the first time, too.
Wow, that's right, from The Empire Strikes Back. Well, and from Cheers. And
from Cheers.
John Ratzenberger.
It was a great gig because, everybody's doing that to him all the time. And,
It was a great time. The first time ever where we did this thing, Disney's never done this, where I got to host this event we called Summon the Force before this gigantic fireworks finale that they would do every night. Honestly, I've seen tons of fireworks things. This was the most exciting fireworks show ever, and it doesn't hurt that it's set to I get chills thinking about the John Williams music. And before that show, I bring out all the characters, and I'm getting blown. I mean, like, Boba Fett's shooting at me, and it's pyrotechnics. They've never done anything like that before. And they're like, well, it's James. If we kill him, it's okay.
You'll just come back as a blue ghost,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Is that
yeah.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a great celebration. Hopefully we'll do it again. And then we've got Celebration coming up, and I think we're going to have some pretty cool guests.
Now, I am really excited about Star Wars Celebration Anaheim because we have incredible guests, but also just having the ability to work with you, and of course Jimmy Mack and Jason Swank.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
We're going to have just a fantastic time, and one of the things we were talking about is trying to do more sort of cross-collaboration between stages. People don't realize, can you walk people through sort of what a host does to prepare?
Every hour you're doing something. At Star Wars weekends, my day would start at about 7 in the morning. I'd get there around 8, but I'm prepping from 7 till about 8. Then it starts, and it doesn't end until about 11 o'clock at night. And I'm literally, all that time, I'm with people. I get maybe 20 minutes where I'm able to close the door. And, JC was with me, and it's like, it's like you get no time to just be to yourself. And you know how it is. But Celebration, it's almost intensified because those stages that we're working are working all the time.
And it's different content that often requires rehearsal.
Exactly. Well, here it is now. We are months out on Celebration, and I have been in planning for it 4 months already. Yeah. The cool thing about Disney and Lucas is they let me write and produce a lot of stuff because I've been a comedy writer and producer for years, and so I wrote a bunch of bits for Star Wars Weekends, and I'm writing a bunch more for Celebration, and I want to, because if I know what guests we have, I want it to be fun for them. I want it to be like The Tonight Show. I want it to be this kind of cool things. But the energy is great. You get that rush, but at the end of each day, I find it's hard to fall asleep.
Yeah, and in case it sounds like, it's not a complaint. It's actually one of the most incredible feelings to be. It's so intense and it's so busy, and if you love Star Wars and you love just the fan community, it's something that just pours out of you.
To walk out to a room of thousands of people that are just excited, and as excited as you are to be doing those things.
It feels like a rock concert.
Do you get to take those moments where, I tell this to people when they get married, take a moment to enjoy it. I'm sitting there, talking to Mark Hamill or Carrie Fisher or one of these people, and I'll stop while they're talking, and I'll just kind of look at it, and I'll look at them, and I'll look at the stage, and look at the people, and go, this is really awesome.
I did. So I had a moment last year at Star Wars Celebration Europe where they did it was the 30th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And at the press conference, it was Mark Hamill,
I
Carrie
watched all
Fisher,
of this.
Peter Mayhew, Jeremy Bulloch, Warwick Davis, Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah.
And I'm missing one. Who am I
Anthony?
missing? Oh,
Yeah.
Anthony Daniels, of course, which is like the
How
icing
could you
on the cake.
forget Anthony Daniels?
Anthony Daniels was actually amazing because I talked to him backstage, and he's very much like a host. And
Oh, yeah, 'cause
he
he's
kind of
done a lot of
started
this,
the whole
yeah.
thing at Celebration, the first Celebration in
Yep.
'99 in Colorado.
And then Star Wars in concert.
So we talked about that, and from there, all of them just got up on stage and were incredible. But there was this moment where there were all 7 of them up there for a photo op.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here going, what did I do in my life to be on stage right now with this reunion of Return of the Jedi, you know?
Well, that's also the kind of surreal thing of being involved in the world as an actor in it, you know, as Obi-Wan and Plo Koon and all these characters for so many years now, too. I mean, I've been voicing Obi-Wan for almost 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when we first started working together.
Well,
You
yeah,
were directing me in,
That's right,
in
that's right.
the Revenge of the Sith stuff.
The video game.
The video game, which had to
And-
mirror the movie.
I mean, you did a lot of stuff that was just sort of what we call wild, not to
Yeah.
picture, but then you also had to do your Obi-Wan. And
Yeah.
that was the first time I ever heard you say, you know, you are the chosen one. You know, and I just remember
Do
thinking,
it. Come on, do it.
I can't, no.
But yeah, he's got those great layers, and that was where we discovered that in those sessions. You know, he had in Attack of the Clones, come to your senses. What would Padme do if she were in
It's
your
that
position?
raspy breakup.
And he goes into that, And so I went, okay, I get a flavor of it. But what you brought in the whole, you were the chosen one. You know, that whole scene, and I went, okay, now I got to recreate that. And once I did, that's when everybody kind of went, okay, this is our guy. And I went, okay, good, because
Oh, man.
it's the fun stuff.
It was chilling. I remember it was
Oh,
chilling.
cool.
But can we talk a little bit about your voice in the Clone Wars? Because
Yeah.
you really got an opportunity to just go way beyond just, well, you know, I can do Ewan McGregor. Because you started out doing a lot of impressions and sound-alikes.
Yeah, most of my work as a voice actor, getting my foot in the door, was doing sound like Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Christopher Walken, Ewan McGregor for other things. When he was doing, like if Ewan McGregor does an American accent, he talks more like this. And so he puts everything, I mean, you understand, you're a singer and a voice actor and a director of all of it. The placement is to hide his accent, he puts his voice up here. So, but if I put my voice up in that same spot, we have the same voice tonally.
Right.
So I thought, well, if I pull it back here and put an accent in, because when I first heard him, I thought, well, this is Ewan McGregor doing Alec Guinness doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this is James Arnold Taylor doing Ewan McGregor doing Alec Guinness doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so I went, okay.
Yeah, because even Ewan's putting on he's Scottish. He's got a Scottish accent.
Yeah, do you remember the
naturally.
first time you saw Phantom Menace?
Oh, yes.
And he says, you were right about one thing, Master.
Yeah, the
And
negotiations
he had,
were short.
Yeah, they were short. And he's got that kind of, you know, you don't need this.
Yeah,
he had the
I always
little
see
notes.
this shot. You know,
Yeah.
You know, every time I hear that, yeah.
And so I remember the first time, I literally went, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what Alec would sound like as a young Obi-Wan. Not as a young Alec Guinness, but as a young Obi-Wan. And so I went, okay. So yeah, it was really kind of pulling back from that. And then once we got into Clone Wars, Dave and George Lucas himself also was very much like, make these your own now. And
you can really tell. But then when the Clone Wars took Obi-Wan to these amazing places,
how cool
the
was
character just took on a life of its own.
Yeah, totally different, because if you listen, if you listen to like the first things, if I'm doing Ewan McGregor, his voice is up here. He's talking like, you look tired because of your mother. Dreams pass in time. He's right in there, right? But if I'm doing Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's right here, and you can hear a difference. You
Right,
look
it
tired
drops.
because of your mother. Dreams pass in time. That's how I would say it for my Obi-Wan. But so it's a totally different voice now, and so I always go, gosh, I don't really sound like Ewan McGregor at all,
Right.
but people, you sound like Obi-Wan. That's a cool thing for people to go, oh, I'm reading Kenobi, and I hear James's Obi-Wan in my head when I think, wow, that's really cool.
Well, let me ask you this: were there places in the Clone Wars when you read the script?
Yeah.
First of all, you got really excited, and then also just thought, I never thought we would see Obi-Wan go to this place.
Yeah,
Are there
the
moments that
Satine-
stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the episodes with Satine. I mean, first off, from the second season, the Mandalorian arc, that whole arc of stories, and seeing, there was even like in that arc, I think, the first time we actually kind of see in his quarters, like in his place in the temple and stuff. And I thought, that's cool. I was like, freeze frame that. I want to, what's he got? You know, what's in the background? Like, here, you know, see all this detail. See, people take all this for granted. You all need to look at all of this beautiful set and all this stuff hiding in the back, like they use the Force DVD, Blu-ray and stuff, and the fanboys.
And
Star Wars Holiday Special. There's all these little details, and so I wanted all the details of what was in Obi-Wan's space, you know? What's in his drawers? What happens if you push it? No, I won't push the button.
Yeah, we'll save that later. You be careful, Obi. That's a Sith hologram.
That's, yeah, why do you have this here?
It looks cool.
So that was exciting, and then exploring that, and you know, spoiler alert, with Satine and what becomes of Satine and where that storyline goes by season 5, that took the wind out of me, because when we got to the studio, you got to remember, I've said this before, we get those scripts when we walk in the door.
Right. So you're getting it cold. And
Literally,
you're just reacting to it.
The thing that I said this actually the other week. I was at a convention and I said this for the first time, and people kind of gasped when I said it, but it's true. It's like, most of the words you hear us speak on Clone Wars, it's the first or second time we've actually literally spoke those words out.
Yeah. And that's true for most voice acting.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's the amazing thing about voice actors. And I mean, you know, you and I, we work with the biggest and the best people in the business, and they walk in and they just
nail it. Yeah. You actually, there's a movie called I Know That Voice, which you were in, and you said something very similar to this, which is that it really is about making choices, strong choices immediately.
Yeah.
And then that's it, and then it's gone.
Yeah, and you're done, and you
then
don't
it
get
lives
to,
on, you know, on Netflix or whatever it is.
And sometimes, unfortunately, it does, because you go, oh, I wish I'd said it like this or I said it like that, but you don't get those opportunities really to dissect it at all, like on-camera actors. And that's the other thing, is people have this expectation of voice actors. Like if you watch that movie and it's like, oh, do the voice, I want to hear them do the voice, or I want to see them do that thing, or I want to not be able to recognize them. That's always the trick. I didn't know that was James, you know, I never would have known that was animation domination. I wouldn't have known that was James. And I think on-camera actors, they get a character and they get to just take it in their voice and make it. Yeah. But we are always like having to trick people.
But it is a pretty great trick, especially now in your background that you mentioned storytelling. You started in radio.
I did.
You know, and that was kind of the whole gig, was just coming up with multiple voices, and now you have this one-man show that you do.
Yes, it's called Talking to Myself. When I do it for Disney at Star Wars Weekends, we call it Obi-Wan and Beyond, to give it a little Obi-Wan in it. But Talking to Myself, I did at Celebration 6 before, and the full 1-hour version. I'll be doing it at the next one as well. It's about what it's like on a day-to-day basis to walk into a little padded room and talk to yourself for extended periods of time. And that's what we do. Yeah. And the tricks that we do with our voice to create illusions in our heads of all these great storytelling devices. Because I grew up loving that, just loving the art of storytelling and the art of creating something using your voice.
Not only do you do Obi-Wan Kenobi, you do Plo Koon, you did a lot of other voices on the Clone Wars as well.
Yeah, a ton of other, we had Rico Hardeen.
Yeah, almost every episode, right?
Osi Sobeck. Yeah, generally speaking, every episode that I'm in,
Sobeck,
you're gonna hear me in it in other voices too, because that's also part of the contract. The thing I loved was like the Citadel episodes where you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then the camera pans around and Master Plo Koon is right there, and he says, well, we might be do things, and then you're on the radio and Obi-Wan's with Osi Sobeck, who's talking, you and your Jedi ways, you know, which is a combination, by the way, of Al Pacino and Christopher Walken.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's well. How do you go about, when you're workshopping something, putting Christopher Walken and Al Pacino together?
Well, okay, so Filoni was like, Dave Filoni, our amazing director, is like, so James, we want to work in,
That's not fair.
we want to work in like Christopher Walken, but not Christopher Walken. So he sent me a script, and he said, this is what we're thinking of for this character, and he's a bad guy. And I did variations of Christopher Walken. So you start with Chris Walken, you know, doing the thing, you in your Jedi ways won't work. And then you change it a little to this, you know, or you bring it up higher. I did all these different variations of it. But then I found, you know, a little Al Pacino. And it was actually a fan that said that. They said, you're really mixing like Al Pacino with him. And it's true, he had a little of this and a little of this. Ooh, and so Osi Sobeck became that, you know, and it was fun. He was just kind of this crazy character.
It really was kind of a who's who of incredible voice talent. I mean, you and Dee and Corey. And,
Jim Cummings.
Jim Cummings.
Jim Cummings, who is one of my all-time heroes. Yeah, the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 and so many amazing characters. He comes in for this character Hondo that we're thinking is probably going to be just a one-time, villain cameo. But Jim put so much into it and changed it and did all that they're like, well, we have to bring Hondo back. And Dave just fell in love with the character.
He's amazing. And then by the time you get to season 5 and you get to sort of the younglings arcs and some of those things, and I forget the line, but someone says something about, insolence or something like that. He goes, "What? We're pirates. We don't even know what that means."
What? There's a lot of like the Satine arc, little inside stories that I was talking about that I loved. I had a car accident, and so I couldn't go to the studio. So most of the Satine stuff I did from my home studio with Dave in my ear, giving me the directions of that stuff. And then here it is some of my favorite stuff, and it's some of the most emotional. But yeah, so it's just, I like now that the stuff is over, that Clone Wars is over, I can kind of give these little, like when I think of stuff, I go, oh, I should say these stories, because they're just fun.
I thought you were going to say, by the way, that Dave was in your ear giving you the Satine lines.
He was.
Oh,
That's
he was?
Actually what, yeah.
What was that like? What's Dave doing Duchess Satine like? Is that kind of a...
And oh, Obi-Wan. Oh, Obi, I wish you wouldn't shave the beard. Yeah, I like you better without the beard. Yeah, no, I don't. My Dave Filoni is basically my David Spade. So
nice.
David Spade is right here. Dave Filoni is just a little lower. Yeah.
There's this Dave Filoni just doesn't want to answer.
And his life is still that. I mean, we're all kind of. I mean, we're never really released from the Star Wars universe or the NDAs of it all, the non-disclosures.
Yeah.
But and of course, Obi-Wan has a nice little cameo in Rebels, but. We're kind of free from that world. Dave is still locked in that world completely.
True.
He can't say anything to anybody ever.
Well, no, let's talk about this. So the Clone Wars recently just had a new release on StarWars.com of Clone Wars Legacy. So we got to see some more of the Season 6, maybe Season 7 in the Utapau arc.
I was so happy that they did that because this is stuff that people have heard me talk on various podcasts about it, that we had recorded this stuff of Anakin and Obi-Wan on their own kind of. See, for years I'd been bugging Dave. You got to do Butch Cassidy and the Sundance
Well,
Kid.
that's exactly what I was going to say. What was it like to just do a buddy picture, basically?
It was
because
just Matt
finally
and I.
Obi and Anakin are off, kind of doing an adventure together.
Yeah. This is completely unexpected. I'm actually getting choked up right now. I've never had that happen. It's David Collins. See, look at what David does to me.
Unlike the Barbara Walters.
No,
of Star Wars,
this is weird because it was so great. And I love Matt Lanter, and he's such a good actor. And he always made my acting better, and it was so great because here's the other thing, Dave. Those were some of our last episodes. That was the last stuff we recorded, and we didn't know the show was done at that time. So, it's great. It's great that it's out there, but it was really cool because I was like, this is where we're going, and we've got like a couple more seasons, and there's levels of there where we're talking about Ahsoka, and there was all these layers.
He forgets at one point.
Yeah.
He forgets at one point. He wants to go talk to Ahsoka, and he has to stop himself.
And then Obi-Wan has to tell him, Anakin, and it pulls him aside. And we had James Hong in there, James Hong, actor from Blade Runner. Your eyes, I did your eyes, He was so funny and so great. He would do, so as voice actors, generally you do an A, a B, and a C take, right? So you give 3 different versions of one line. But you don't usually, if you're recording as a cast, you don't do that. You'll just change it up after each take.
Right.
So James Hong would be like, I like to give 3 takes. He'd say, I give 3 takes. So, pause. So we'd be like, okay, all right. So he'd go, you Jedi? You Jedi? We're not going to jump in. And he was hysterical. He was just so funny. And he was a great guy. But I mean, he's a kind of a iconic figure.
He's a legend.
Now. Yeah.
I think of Big Trouble in Little China. And movies like that. I mean, he was just like an 80s icon. He was in everything.
And even Seinfeld, the Chinese restaurant episode.
James Hong, amazing.
Yeah, so he was great. So he was in those episodes, and we just, really great stuff. And really emotional stuff, and I'm so thrilled that people can see it online now and that they did that.
Well, and how great for Lucasfilm to release them, because it is a leap of faith to put out episodes that are not finished. They're not animated. It's just sort of the cinematic layout. It's the story layout, right?
And it's very trusting of them, and it's also, I think, really cool of the fans.
Yeah, you get to see behind the scenes. Like, people might forget that you're not seeing all of these things when you're acting.
No.
So you find it takes a tremendous amount of imagination when you're voice acting. Do you have any stories doing Obi-Wan or any other characters where you were just kind of guessing out into the wild, and then you see it back and you go, oh, well, that worked out?
Most of the time, especially when you start a new show, you know, Clone Wars was its own thing because, you know, it's Star Wars. But we didn't know in the beginning what it was going to look like. I mean, when we first came into the studio the first time and we did all that stuff that became the movie,
right?
And it was Nika Futterman and I were the first day, and you know, and you'll have to do better than that, my dear, you know, my darling, you know, all those things. And I look back at that and I go, oh, I would have changed that. I would have done this, but
that's the Teth fight that you guys do.
Yeah, and I had no idea what it was going to look like. But I'll tell you, for example, doing Rebels, when I went in to voice the stuff that everybody's now seen, I didn't know what to expect because I knew that the animation was going to be different. They told me that he was going to look different, and it's funny because I actually, you know, they always had said that they kind of stylized him after us, you know, on the shows, and I see a little of him. I almost see more of me in this Obi-Wan than that Obi-Wan. It was funny because in the eyes and the face, and it actually choked me up watching it because it's like, oh man.
Well, and it's also, you know, that moment in the Star Wars Rebels movie is really, I think, the emotional pinnacle. Of that. I mean, you know, it really is kind of like, I mean, you hear it a little bit in the beginning, but really it's when Obi-Wan comes in that, for me anyway, this is when I was like, oh, this is Star Wars.
Kind of that lean forward moment.
And what it kind of does is it amplifies the events of the Jedi Temple. If you watch the Clone Wars, and then you go back and watch Episode 3 and Episode 2 specifically, it completely changes the way you watch those movies.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the wonderful things about your work on Rebels and the Clone Wars as well, is that it really does just kind of tie everything together. And Obi-Wan's kind of a special character that way.
He is, yeah, and that's where it's like I take no credit for that. I give full credit to George Lucas creating this character that is so rounded and so much a part of it. I literally pinch myself when I think about I could have been, as an actor, involved in this world in any way and in many characters, but Obi-Wan, again, for better or worse, no matter what, you know, some people have, you know, Dave jokes about like, yeah, it's all Obi-Wan's fault. However, he's in the entire story all the time, and he is, I think, probably one of the most human characters, even though Anakin is so human in, he's kind of all of us, he's the prodigal son to a degree, but Obi-Wan is all of us in that we want to do the right thing, and we mess up, but we're still okay. Kind of, you know, I don't know. There's just, it's a big character. Did you see the movie The Captains with William Shatner?
I did. Yeah. I did, where he interviews everyone.
He interviews all the captains of the Starship Enterprise and all that. And there's this great kind of thing that happens for Shatner because he's such a polarized figure and all too, and he comes to this acceptance of it all.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where we all kind of, I find myself in that place. Now, I've never been jaded by all of it, really, like that. You know, I mean, he got kind of, you know, I'm an actor.
Right,
I want to do more than this. You know, I was like, I get to play Obi-Wan, you know. But there is still that kind of time where you have to look at it all now and take it in and appreciate it for what it is. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing that he actually, to whatever degree he could, kind of gets to that point.
Leonard Nimoy wrote, I am not Spock.
Right.
To, you know, outrage, and then eventually wrote another book called I Am Spock. Do you know the story? You know, there's just this. I mean, if you're at the genesis of something that is so huge that ends up kind of becoming the focal point of your entire career everywhere you go. Mark Hamill, right? I mean, he is Luke Skywalker to millions of people around the world.
Arguably the biggest movie hero of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. But coming into something that's so huge and then suddenly being swept away on a tidal wave.
Yeah, you know what it is I think we kind of go, as Clone Wars actors, I think I can speak for most of us, of like, well, we're just coming in midway. But it's like, no, you're
and then
part of it.
The train leaves the station and you're on board, and the fans kind of just embrace it, and it's Star Wars. It's Star Wars coming onto your TV every week into your living room.
And you know, it's exciting for Taylor and Tia and Steve Bloom and all the folks on Rebels now, because when they came to Star Wars
Weekends, right? That was their first one, obviously.
And so outside there's the hat stage, they call it. And there's 10 to 15,000 people out there. So they get out of their little car, because we have our motorcade, and it takes you up to there. And you see like Taylor Gray, who's playing Ezra, he comes up there the first time, and and he's got his phone, and he's taking pictures and stuff, but it's like, this is amazing. And it's like, welcome to the family, kid. And it was really neat to be able to kind of do that for all of them. So it's fun. And we get to do that at Celebration, you and I both.
Well, one of my favorite Celebration moments is in 2007 when Dave showed a little bit of the Clone Wars. And this was before there was even a buyer for the show. And George was like, oh, let's show them something. And the place erupted like the Beatles were playing Ed Sullivan.
Really?
I mean, it was crazy, And then we just rolled it again. And watching kind of the birth of this new era of Star Wars. And then just, I mean, were you there at Celebration in 2007?
Yeah, it's really funny. I was there. They got me passes and everything. And I had the Yoda pass, which is, of course, the best, all access and everything. And everybody's like, who's this guy? And I was like, just you wait till the next one.
That's right.
Because we had done the micro series already. So people were like, oh, that's cool. And so I was signing little pictures of that at their booths every once in a while, but just little stuff. I think the cool thing that Clone Wars did, which, I hope Rebels can do for people too, is it gave parents, people my age, here I'm 45, I grew up with Star Wars. Dads sat with their kids and watched Star Wars and introduced them to Star Wars through Clone Wars now. My daughter, who's 9, knows Star Wars through Clone Wars, and that's pretty cool. So it's neat that it was embraced, and I think that's also a credit to the fact that it was done right. It was done by the right people. So.
Well, speaking of the right people, something that Pablo Hidalgo said recently when the Clone Wars Legacy stuff came out on StarWars.com is what is so significant about the Clone Wars is that those are the last stories that came directly from George Lucas.
Yeah, that I think is really important.
What was it like kind of working with George Lucas and being in part of that feedback loop with George, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time?
It's really weird. It's very surreal because you just go, like Dave would come in and he'd go, yeah, George liked what you did here, but he wants to change it there or whatever. And you go, hang on, say that again? And we nerd out, but it was
so he's
true.
on the line with Dave. And,
it's really weird. Oh, I mean, most of the time we were in the studio, he'd be like, hang on, guys, and you'd go off and be on the phone, and you go, oh, he's talking to George Lucas. And, even if you're not a fan of Star Wars, you go, that's pretty impressive. They're literally changing lines right now. Yeah, no, we're voicing that right now. Okay, hang on. Hang on, guys, we're going to change that line. That happened quite often. And that was really neat. It's just, and we all would get kind of like, D. Bradley Baker and I would start doing our surfer dude. It's George Lucas.
It's still George Lucas right now. Oh God.
But for anybody that was a naysayer of the prequels or any of that, you go, no, this guy created this. He knows what he's doing, and he's creating really compelling, dramatic, inspiring television that's really more like movies, and he hadn't lost it. It was right there, and I think that's really important for fans to embrace that.
Well, you've got Celebration Anaheim coming in 2015.
Yes, Celebration Anaheim, April, what is it, the 16th
April
through the 19th?
16th through the 19th at the Anaheim Convention Center.
Anaheim Convention Center.
We expect great things as always from James Arnold Taylor.
Well,
anything
and from
else?
David Collins.
Well, I hope so, and I hope we can do it together.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna mess with people. I think it'll be good. But yeah, my show, talking to myself, I'm still, I'd love to take it on the road because I love educating people on voiceover. I'm developing an app right now, a JAT app. I had released my book, JAT 365, which you can get on Amazon.com. And I'm revamping my website. My website will be all new here in a little bit. And I may start a podcast here at some point. So.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that we had you on the show because I think to myself, gosh, I want to hear you talk about the stories that you have.
I've got to come back sometime and we'll talk about my adventures of hosting and interviewing people like Mark Hamill at Star Wars Weekend. That was kind of the joke. Like the first thing I said to him was, "So, you been working on anything?" And it gets a laugh, but then it's like,
"What's the beard?"
Yeah,
What's all that about?
And he's like, "I can't. It takes me forever to grow a beard, so I couldn't shave it, and grow it back in time." So he's like, "So you guys know that part, But that was it, because our whole thing, we got to give a nice little speech to everybody to say, "Look, I said when I saw Star Wars, the magic was we didn't have phones and tweets and all this, so I didn't know until I went and saw it."
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool if we could all save that magic for this. So stop asking, basically like, stop. And everybody kind of agreed, that, yeah, it's better to be surprised by this. I want to be surprised. I want to go into the theater and I want to be surprised. I want to be like at the end of Fanboys where, they're, oh, of course I don't want to what if it sucks? Right? But
still, what a great ending to that, because we have this conversation a lot. JC, the director producer. I mean, we talk about how much do we want to get into spoilers, because we really want to save that. I mean, it's out there, it's news, we know that it's out there, it's happening, drones and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I really do like to save the magic. I went into The Phantom Menace knowing nothing. In fact, I got the soundtrack beforehand, and I remember standing in the middle of a Tower Records in Boston, getting it and looking on the back and look at the track list.
Yeah,
do you remember what's on that?
Right.
Qui-Gon's Noble End.
Yeah, don't do that.
And I remember just losing it in the middle of Tower Records in Boston, just going, what? So that's how I feel about Episode 7. I just want to go in and just have my hair blown back.
Yeah, it was like that for me with Star Trek, because I went in going, I don't want to know.
Yeah, a brilliant movie, right? Because you're like, oh, they're going to reboot Star Trek, but actually, no, they actually wrote it so that it's an alternate timeline, so really I'm watching Star Trek 11. How did he do that? Amazing.
JJ.
Yeah, JJ Abrams.
All right.
December 2015. Thank you very much, James.
Hey,
really appreciate
thank you, David.
Being here and,
pleasure. Wonderful.
The force is strong here at Comlink.
That's right.
Yes.
And we'll take you up on doing a bit more.
This is the show you're looking for.